love this session.
Good start.
Yeah, I haven't seen the text of them yet, but
And I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and I think unfortunately, you look at the regulations and the fees and the taxes that have been passed over the last decade, this is not an easy thing to unwind. If there was a magic bullet to fix it, we would have done it, right? So I welcome it as a good start, but and I'm encouraged by what he said today, but there's a lot of more work to be done, and I hope his appointments to the Building Code Council reflect people that are in the industry and understand the consequences of what that council does. So there's a whole host of things that we need to look at there that I hope you'll take a hard look at with us.
And, getting back to my point about him being a lot closer to the speech I gave on opening day than the speech that Jay Inslee gave yesterday, my opening day speech mentioned the fact that the average permit delay in building a new house is 6.5 months. The cost of complying with regulations, it adds $144,000 to the cost of the median-priced home in Washington. A lot of that's driven by local government, not just state government, but that's the right attitude. Again, haven't read the text of the executive order. I'll do that sometime later today, but the way he described it in his speech, it's very consistent with the point I made on Monday, that if we want to build more housing, we can't have a 6.5-month delay. We can't add $144,000 to the cost of a new starter home. And if we can fix the regulations on the state level, that's one place to start. Yep.
Beyond the speeches, how much of a contrast do you see here between what Governor Ferguson had to say today and what it was like in the past 12 years for Republicans working with the Inslee administration? Would you say that was particularly a particularly strange or difficult relationship?
Governor Inslee, for whatever reason, just has never, I think, and he might even admit it himself, you'd have to ask him, but he was never particularly interested or engaged in the legislative process. He'd come up, some years with priority bills, and he might, spend an afternoon, walking around talking to legislatures, but by and large was not materially engaged. And it was different than, and I didn't serve with Governor Gregoire, but I understand her to have been very engaged. And what I heard today sounds like Governor Ferguson will be more like Governor Gregoire, more engaged in both, talking to and listening to legislators on both sides of the aisle to try to get the solution that works best for Washington State. I think it's very encouraging, but there's a lot of work in front of us to make it actually happen.
I'll go ahead, Drew.
I had a brief conversation with Governor Ferguson before we went in, and I said I have one request, and that was your predecessor. I was in the House for 10 years before the Senate, and under Governor Inslee, he came into this room once in the 10 years I was here. And I find that incredible that, a co-equal branch of government, he basically ignored. Governor Ferguson's credit, he said, I'll come every time you ask me to. So we'll take him up on that, because I think it's important to have that dialogue.
So he will be invited to the Senate Republican caucus to visit, and I hope he comes.
To ask if the relationship is strained implies there's a relationship to begin with, which didn't exist, to Drew's point. Another contrast between the two governors, I think I met with Governor Inslee maybe 2 to 3 times in my one session or as leader. The very first time I met with him at the first meeting of the session, last session, very first thing I brought up was the ag exemption from the CCA, and his response was that ecology told him that it was already accomplished. The farmers were already getting the refund, which was just utterly false. And now Bob Ferguson realizes it's an important enough issue to specifically call out and admit that we still need to get it done in his state of the state. So night and day difference in just acknowledgement of reality.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.